Welcome to Cafe DC. I'm Faiz Rahman, and today we have a very different kind of show. Normally you see a member of Congress or somebody from the executive branch of the US government or think tanks, authors. But today we have an ambassador from, again, a very unique country in Europe, and a very tiny country, probably the second smallest country in the world. You may have heard about it. I'm sure in Pakistan a lot of people know about Monaco. Ambassador, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here. Ambassador Maggie Macario is here with us, and we'll just basically talk about your country and its contribution to the world, to the international community, and your role as an ambassador here in this important capital. So let's talk about Monaco. It has a long history. I think late 13th century. Since late 13th century, it's been ruled, so to speak, by one family. It's about less than 1 square mile. I suppose it's only 0.78 square mile to be exact. And its defense is guarded or offered by France. So please, after this takeover, what Monaco is.
Well, first I want to thank you for your gracious invitation to be able to present Monaco in front of your viewer.
Absolutely.
Of course, Monaco has been very renowned as a very glamorous place, sophisticated. It is well known because of its princely family. But there is much more to Monaco than what is known to the outside world. Definitely, we are a small country, but we have reached far beyond our geographical size. And today, Monaco also presents a very vibrant economy. We have on 1 square mile 36,000 residents living, of which 7,000 are nationals. So we are
24,000 is the total population.
36,000
36,000
is the total population, of which 7,000 are Monegasque. So we are a minority in our own country. And out of that, we welcome every day over 40,000 workers to the Principality of Monaco from neighboring country. So we have a vibrant economy.
So so that means on a given day, you will have about 80,000 people.
If everybody is in town.
Yes, in town, yes, exactly.
Exactly. But we have over 5,000 companies established in the Principality of Monaco, of which more than 100 are factories going from pharmaceutical, beauty product, ready-wear, and so it's something that is not always.
So those companies actually are registered, or they also have physical presence?
Absolutely,
oh, okay.
Absolutely, in Monaco.
Because Monaco is also famous for its tax policies.
It is a soft fiscal system, but for business, I will not say that it is a very attractive system. It's the same than France. There's a 33% tax on businesses. But the government provides space for companies that set up business in Monaco, also training and research.
I was reading, some history of this country, and President de Gaulle actually he put a blockade of this little tiny country because of its tax haven policies. He thought, a lot of people were trying to evade taxations because of this. So I mean. Now it has more taxes. Is it because of that blockade?
No, it does not have more taxes. But at the time, it was a very sensitive time, as a lot of French citizens were claiming residence in Monaco without really owning any residency and just having a PO box and using it to avoid paying French taxes. So that
was like 51 years ago, 1963.
More than that.
More than, yeah, exactly, almost true. Ambassador, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you about is this famous Monaco Boys Choir, which basically goes around the world, and currently it's in the United States, making a tour and performing in different cities. So please, can you shed some light on why they go around the world and the philosophy behind this group, this choir?
Absolutely. This is, in fact, we are celebrating this year the 40th anniversary of the creation of this choir. It was really launched by His Serene Highness Prince Rainier. And he always very affectionately referred to them as his little singing ambassadors. And this is a boys' choir from the Cathedral of Monaco. So they go through very rigorous training and examination before they're accepted. The boys are between the age of 8 and 18. And
so that's why they're called little ambassadors.
That's right. We call them the boys' choirs of the
Yes,
Cathedral of Monaco
exactly.
now. We've changed it a little bit, their names. But they are from also different nationalities. They all live in Monaco, but we have Americans, we have
So they
French,
don't have
Italian.
to be from Monaco.
They don't
yeah.
have to be Monegasque. Yeah, absolutely. And this year was their 10th visit to the United States, and we were very happy to welcome them here because there's such an opportunity for us to send a message of peace, of hope to so many people here. And we were delighted to have them perform at the National Hospital Center, Children's Hospital Center here in Washington, D.C., where they had really a great performance, and have them mingle with the children. And then after that, they performed at the National American History Museums, as this year marked the 200th anniversary of the writing of the national anthem. They performed in front of the national flag and gave a concert not only to our guests but to the visitors to the museum that day. So we had over 1,000 people.
I think this idea is very exclusive to Monaco. I don't think any other nation has this kind of musical group.
I know, I'm sure it exists in other countries, but of course, music is not the only interest in those in the choir. They also give a lot of free concert for charitable organizations in different parts of the world. So they've already visited more than 40 countries, and they give an average of 30 concerts per year.
So how many concerts they're going to be doing here in the United States?
Well, they first arrived in New York City, and they gave a concert at the United Nations. They also performed at the St. John the Divine Cathedral in New York City. Then they came down to Washington. Their tour includes more than 14 concerts, in more than 11 cities. And they will finish in Miami on July 29th and then return to Monaco.
I think we can give our audience a little, taste of their music. They're very impressive, I listen to their music.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, their repertoire is very varied. It includes sacred music, but also folkloric national songs and, of course, patriotic songs.
And they sing some good American songs as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. They range from patriotic song to Frank Sinatra's music.
So that's a good diplomacy for Monaco, I guess.
Absolutely.
Just like you said before, they're the little ambassadors of Monaco. So
it's really a very nice way to kind of bring hopes and send a message of friendships to different parts of the world on behalf of the government of Monaco and His Serene Highness Prince Albert. In fact, in my career, I had the opportunity of welcoming them to New York when I was based in New York as Consul General. It was just after the 9/11 incidents, and at a time where people were not traveling, Monaco sent its boys' choir to the United States to send a message of hope, of freedom. And they, in fact, performed at the Yankee stadiums, the national anthems, and received the standing ovations.
Very good. There's a lot of good history between the United States and Monaco. And
there are. It's kind of amazing. I mean, there are very deep friendly tie between Monaco and the United States, going back over a century ago. I believe that the first consul office was opened in the late 1800s. And in fact, it was in 1874 that the United States named a consul representative in Monaco. He was located in Nice at the time. And that was a time also a turning point for Monaco where tourism was really starting to boom. And there was the first railway track that linked Monaco to Nice, etc., and gaming and hotels. And since then, of course, we had in the United States the visit of Prince Albert I, who came between 1860 1870, I think, and 1920. He came 3 times. I think he's one of the few head of state to really come to the United States, from European head of state to come to the United States. He came and was received by the president at the White House, and also went hunting with Buffalo Bill in Cody, Wyoming.
Oh, very good.
In fact, last year we celebrated the 100th anniversary of his visit.
Wow. Madam Ambassador, we will take a short break here, but after we come back, I would like to talk about Prince Albert's father, Prince Rainier. I mean, who made headlines when he married, Grace Kelly, the famous American actress. And,
yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
This truly cemented the link between Monaco and the United States. Yes,
it's not just the embassy and the ambassador, but
absolutely.
These two countries.
By blood, Prince Albert II is half American.
Exactly, exactly. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
We also are doing a lot of things on the international level for culture, for humanitarian causes. And I think also for the environment, this is where we play a very important role.
Welcome back. I'm Faiz Rahman, and we are talking to Madam Ambassador Maggie Maccario. Thank you very much once again. So when we left for the break, we were talking about Prince Albert's father, Prince Rainier, who married a very famous American actress who's actually Prince Albert's mother. So by that link,
Grace Kelly.
Yeah, Grace Kelly, and the current ruler of the principality is half American because his mother was an American. So let's talk about that marriage.
Definitely, yes. That
1956, by the way.
1956.
A long time
yes,
ago.
Yes. That was again a turning point for the Principality of Monaco. That it was amazing about this country because it is, in spite of its size, it has gone through so much in over times. And as you just mentioned earlier, I mean, the Grimaldi family have ruled the Principality of Monaco since the Middle Ages, a time where Marco Polo was coming back from his trade from India. Was the time where the first Grimaldi took over the fortress of Monaco because of its strategic location on the Mediterranean, offering a port in the beginning of commerce.
It's surrounded by France on 3 sides and then the Mediterranean. Yes.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And we're very blessed by nature because we have this very, very beautiful location on the Mediterranean against the mountains and a lot of open space and open skies.
Madam Ambassador, while we're talking about Prince Albert and Prince Rainier, I think Monaco is the only country in the world where its rulers are called prince. They're not given any other title. Why is that? I know it's called Principality of Monaco. So why a prince is ruling the country?
I believe it really comes back to the 1700, and it comes really from our association with France, where the King of France bestowed the title of prince to the ruler at the time. For a longer period, we were not really prince. We had lords of Monaco, and that was switched around that time, even before that time.
Good. And one of the reasons Monaco became so famous, besides Grace Kelly, I'm not taking the shine and away from the prince, but Monte Carlo is also world famous. People as far as in India, Pakistan, and other Asian countries and Europe, Monte Carlo is a very, very famous place. And people actually, I know schools named after this place, Monte Carlo, in Pakistan and India and other countries. So can you please tell us?
It's a wonderful brand, Monaco, Monte Carlo.
Exactly.
It's been used
Exactly, everywhere.
Absolutely.
It's a global brand, actually.
Absolutely. Monte Carlo was really very well known also at the beginning of the 20th century, a time where we set up the first gaming casino there, at a time where gambling was prohibited in France and in Italy. And it was a time also where Monaco was on the verge of a bankruptcy. And the ruler of the time, Prince Charles III, and his mother, Princess Caroline, decided to bring gaming to Monaco and negotiated the rights to have gaming officially in Monaco. And that was a very good bet because they were able to get someone who was very knowledgeable, a real estate person who was also very much involved in gaming, who came from French background, but also was based in one of the principality of Germany at the time, because Germany was not unified, and had been very successful setting up a casino there. And when he came to Monaco and he saw the location, and he asked the prince to purchase the rights for gaming for 50 years and set up hotels and casino on the hill adjacent to where the palace was located. And because the name of the hill in Italian is Monte, and the ruler of the time was Charles Carlo, the name came from Monte Carlo. But that was really the beginning of the boom of Monaco. What I just talked about tourism also starting to grow. It was the beginning of the first resort that ever existed in the world, you know, with hotels, gaming, spas.
Way before Las Vegas came into
way
being,
before that. Yes. It was a great, inspirations for what was yet to come in the future.
And also, the real boom actually came when it was linked through rail. With France.
Absolutely. At the turn of the 20th century, yes, because it used to take 2 hours to drive by carriage from Nice to Monaco, which is about 14 kilometers away from Nice is about 14 kilometers away from Monaco. And with the railroad, it really facilitated access and really opened up to the rest of the world. I mean, it was a time where a lot of the Russian princes used to come before the revolution, used to come down to spend their winter in the south of France on the Côte d'Azur, and especially in Monaco.
I'm just, again, thinking about the size of the country and, the contribution that it has made to the Western civilization, as well as, the economy. And, just to have, this casino, the first casino probably, like you said, of its kind, first of its kind in the world. It's 0.78 square mile. So, I mean, for lots of cars, even before you warm up, you're out of the country, right? Lots of cars can't even, warm up before they go a mile or so. So how does it feel? I mean, if you look at this country, it's so massive. America is so massive. And I think last time we met, you made this reference that Monaco is actually about the size of Central Park in New York?
Of the size of Central Park, that is correct. But I think Monaco should not be judged on its size. I think it's its history, its architecture. It's a very vibrant city, and it's more an experience. It's like being a talent in a movie for whatever time you decide to stay there. And so that's what makes Monaco so beautiful. And as I mentioned earlier, it's also its location on the Mediterranean.
So it does have a state, and then within that state, it also has a city administration, I understand.
Yes.
A municipality.
Yeah.
You have a principality, and then
Monaco, the Rock of Monaco, what we refer to as the Rock of Monaco, where the Prince's Palace is and where our
very famous palace, yes.
Absolutely, dating back to the Middle Age. This is really the old part of Monaco, what we call Monacoville. And then you have, as time went by and the expansion of Monaco started, you had what we call Monte Carlo, which came in the late 1800s. And then we had land that was reclaimed from the sea under the rule of Prince Rainier, that we refer to him as the Builder Prince, because he increased the size of the country by 25% without declaring any war to his neighboring country. So that was the part where we have right now our public beaches and some of our museums and our exhibition center. And then on the other side of Monaco, on the western side, we have the town of Fontvieille, which is more a district than a town, I'm sorry. And that was all reclaimed from the sea. And on this area, we have also housing, hotels, an heliport, and a yachting basin.
I see. So besides the casino, Monte Carlo, and the beaches, the world-famous beaches, what else the tourists come there for?
For the beautiful hotels, for the spa, for the food, yes, we have on 1 square mile.
Is it like French food in a sense, or like
it's Mediterranean?
Its own
Mediterranean.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
definitely.
I mean, do you have your own flavor of like which can be distinguished? It is Monaco food. This is something like.
Well, one has to remember that
cuisine.
The Monaco come from very humble beginning. Before this big tourism boom and the casino gaming, etc., Monaco lived only from the natural product that came from there, and there were mainly olive trees. So we had a very, very humble beginning, and our food also still carried this influence from Swiss chards being grown there, from using olive oil in most of our product, bread, etc. And right now, the opposite is that we have more of on 1 square mile, the most star-studded chefs in the world. So from Alain Ducasse to Joël Robuchon.
Wow, good. Well, let's come back here again. Your ambassador of Monaco here in Washington, and the United States is a very good partner of this country. What's your role here as an ambassador? I understand that your country doesn't have a very vigorous global foreign policy. It does have, some semblance of a foreign policy, but not exactly a very proactive or international foreign policy. So why do you have an embassy in this capital? Why don't you just, let France take care of your affairs with the United States?
Well, first of all, we are a country with our own system. We have a head of state. We also are doing a lot of things on the international level for culture, for humanitarian causes, and I think also for the environment. This is where we play a very important role. Monaco has a long history of environmental stewardship. It's part of our DNA. It really started under the rule of Prince Albert I, who was the great-great-great-grandfather of our actual prince that I just mentioned earlier, who was himself an environmentalist and a great oceanographer. As early as the late 1800s, he was sailing the oceans with scientists trying to understand the effect of sea currents on climate change and gathering marine biology, and really understood the connection between human being and nature. He was one of the first princes to travel all the way to Svalbard and Spitsbergen to the Arctic, not making it all the way to the poles. He also came to the United States and delivered at the National Academy of Science a speech on the state of the oceans, for which he received one of the highest recognition, the Agassiz Medal, which is normally bestowed on scientists only.
I see.
And this is because of his involvement with the environment and nature that we have in Monaco the Oceanographic Museum, which was the home of Jacques-Yves Cousteau for more than 50 years.
Well, so what's your position on global warming? Is there any official position of Monaco?
Well, I think later on, Prince Albert II really continued the family legacy by starting his own foundation. The Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation was launched in 2006. It has now chapters in more than 9 countries. And it really supports 3 main challenges, which is the loss of biodiversity and the fight against deforestation, water management, and fight against desertifications, as well as climate change and renewable energies. Since its creations, the foundation has already supported more than 130 projects and given $23 million through special grants. Tying research and also supporting institutions such as the Smithsonian Institute here, the Scripps Institute in Los Angeles, in California, and the Film Museum in Chicago.
Global warming and climate change is still a controversial issue in America. Not everybody believes in this, notion that the world is changing, the temperature is changing. So, I mean, is there any policy difference that you also address with your counterparts here with your...
Absolutely, absolutely. This is one of my platforms because I'm on the board of the Prince Albert of Monaco Foundation USA. I'm the vice president, and certainly, yes, there is a need to not only to mitigate, but also to adapt to the changes that are going to take place. The changes are going to take place whatever we do. The question is how are we dealing with it right now? And through the efforts of the foundation, and we had in fact last month the visit of His Serene Highness Prince Albert II here in Washington D.C., invited by Secretary Kerry to the conference on the oceans, which is really a very important platform for the Principality of Monaco and for the Prince, especially relating to the rising water of the oceans and the acidification of the oceans and the effect of global warming and climate change on the oceans and on marine life.
Madam Ambassador, you talked about Prince Albert II's interest in environment, and of course his mother was a famous American actress, and there was an award for artists instituted in her name. And I understand these two major award ceremonies are coming up in October. Can you please tell us something about those ceremonies?
Yes,
please?
of course. They're coming up in October, and they're organized for the first time here in the United States. They will be taking place in California. The first one is the 31st Princess Grace Awards. This foundation was created after the passing of Princess Grace to continue her legacy as an artist. It was the foundation was launched by her family. And today, the foundation has supported more than 700 artists in the field of dance, film, and theater through special grants, apprenticeships, scholarships, and they have given over $10 million. So the award will be taking place on October 8th in Los Angeles, in the presence of His Serene Highness Prince Albert II. And following the Princess Grace Award, we will have another big event taking place in California, in Palm Springs, at the Annenberg Sunnyland Center retreat for the 7th Prince Albert of Monaco Awards for the Environment. Mm-hmm. And this will be the first time that.
So that will also signify his interests in this issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just prior to the award, there will be a retreat taking place at the Annenberg Center with a group of scientists, policymakers, very high-end. The Prince will be there. And the crowning of this two-day retreat will be the Prince Albert of Monaco Awards.
Very good. Is there any web address that you can share with us, with our audience?
Absolutely. I will suggest to your viewer to learn everything about the Principality of Monaco to go to our official website,
yes.
gouve.mc.
Okay, and they can also find some details about these awards on that website.
Absolutely, and we also have our website for the Prince Albert of Monaco Foundation. It's pfa2.com.
Very good. Madam Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us here today. And it was a wonderful discussion, and I'm sure people will know more about your country and its contribution to the world civilization, as well as these world issues as climate change, global warming, and other pertinent issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me as your guest here today, and I invite you, viewer, to learn more about Monaco on our website, our official website, which is monacogouv.mc. Monaco, MONACO-GOUV.mc.
Very good. And we'll also put a slide on the screen so the viewers can also read the entire website. And I'm sure they'll visit to know more about this very interesting and very unique country. Again, I'm Faiz Rahman, and you're watching Cafe DC. Thank you very much for being with us today. Please don't forget to give us your feedback through our social media accounts. And don't forget to go to our website, which is urduwear.com. Thank you very much.